Good evening and welcome to Summit League Racing Division 3. We are here with our second race of the weekend, and Division 3 is always sure to bring some action. We've had some simply phenomenal races so far this season, and the championship standings, looking at these now, are also looking pretty juicy. Championship leader SLR Moley only leads the championship over Gregors by 5 points, with Petronas 34 a further 2 points back. Bad Otter is also within a race victory of the Division 3 championship leader. Therefore, with plenty of races to go, we're on round 6 now of 16. It really is anyone's game for the championship. Div 3, I would say, probably it's the most competitive championship of all three of the divisions. We also have some new drivers, and generally drivers racing who are looking to impress. So I expect that we should be getting going in the next 30 seconds or so. It is now 8:01 now. So hopefully people will join us and we can enjoy the action of Division 3. Canada is an interesting track because it has the shortest pit lane in the calendar. So if you have anything such as a virtual safety car, then it's one of the few tracks where you can kind of consider a two-stop. Although, with the tyre war on this game, I don't expect many drivers to be doing that. But then again, with the close proximity of the barriers, I would expect a decent amount of safety cars as well. We have 16 drivers, a near full grid. I think we're expecting a 17th driver to join during qualifying. As I can see, the countdown is now at about 25 seconds. So, able to get going soon. As we should be in the session in another 30 seconds or so. And we can see what kind of weather Canada throws up. Canada has had several very exciting wet races. We hope for another one soon. I do quite like the wet. I think the wet can be quite exciting. Especially on this game as the wet in particular. The way that the drying line forms on the racing line is quite interesting. It's quite good. Anyway, see what we got then. It is a wet quali. It is a wet quali. Looks to be intermediate tyres for qualifying. And yeah, this is what I'm expecting for this session. We're going to see track evolution, big time. As I'm just kind of confirming whether it's wet just in qualifying, or whether it's wet in qualifying and the race. As people have selected softs just to see. That's a bit odd. Battle selects the hard tyres, though. That is interesting. Sorry, I need to myself in this session. Right. Right, first person to start a lap is thankfully on the right tyres, and that is Rico. So Rico has chosen the intermediates. Bados has chosen the hards. Maxwell has chosen the softs. So maybe they know something we don't. But here we go. Rico sliding the car through sector 1. Turn 2, interestingly using first gear, trying to get powered down, trying to get the rotation. Trying to drive kind of as smoothly as possible. And the sector 1 split is a 22.4 through the first sector. Rico using a lot of curb, it has to be said, at the second chicane. So that is quite a good line so far from Rico. It's smooth, but is it fast? That is the question. Approaching now the hairpin and the sector 2 split, 47.0. That's what everyone's got to chase, as the Haas driver is the first driver who's going to be completing a lap. Using a lot more battery as well, as we're now blasting up towards the final chicane. Final chicane, of course, incredibly easy to invalidate. Incredibly easy to invalidate, but Rico, smooth as you like, coming up towards the line, has not invalidated, and has done an 18.6. I'm pretty sure that's quicker than the Div... That's quicker than the Div 2 pole time in the wet. So maybe these are a lot wetter conditions. As I'm having a look now at Joe's in sector 1. It's on a 22.2 first sector. They're not really using too much batteries. Alligator's now gone a 10th quicker than Rico. But yeah, that lap from Rico, it looked smooth and was clearly fast. Has to be said. As Lofty only went 7/10 slower than it, which kind of goes to show how good the lap was. Who's going to be the next person to set a lap? I think it might actually be the Alpine of Joe that we were on board with. Yes, I think it is. As he's now approaching the final sector. Interestingly, not using as much battery, not caking the battery in the straights in the wet as you would expect someone to do, because that's one thing that is quite key in the wet, is making sure, because you have more ERS, that you cake the battery, but I'll still go P3, 2/10 off P1. The wet, you have more ERS deployment to use, and that's an interesting one why you have more ERS deployment. You have more ERS deployment because the braking zones become longer, and the traction zones also become longer, so you have less time putting the throttle down and more time putting the brake pedal down. As Slicks has disqualified his car from the session. I mean, I know why he's disqualified his car from the session. It's because he's got a qualifying ban, but he did join the quali late, so maybe he should have retired instead of disqualified, because that could have ended quite badly. But it's the thought that counts, I suppose. As we're now on board with SLR Moley. SLR Moley, the championship leader. Quali, I wouldn't really say has been his strong suit this season, and He's one that generally picks up positions in the races. However, in mixed conditions like this, Modi's looking quite good. P6 with 119.9. Now on board with TIR Sniper Jr. I know the Roger often watches these streams to see how the Spider is doing, but he's invalidated the final chicane. Invalidation on the final chicane is perhaps the most classic of all the invalidations, and I think he's proved that. As I think I cut back to Jode, also invalidated, so yeah. Interestingly, I can see a dry line now. DRS was enabled, and I think we're back to dries. Already. Bados has only done a 20.8 and is on the hard tyre. So this was a very quick rain shower, it must be said. And this really is going to make that last lap over the line most important, as Moley's gone P1 by 0.7 of a second. So that is just showing how good the drying track is. 7 entire tenths. Oh, there's been a grid penalty for someone. There's been a grid penalty for Spider for a collision with Maxwell. I didn't quite see that, but Maxwell... That must have been going into the pits, maybe. Must have been. That's a very... But yeah, it's very odd. Maxwell is on 3-lap-old tyres, so it's not really going to be setting the world alight, it must be said. As Gregus has also been disqualified. Wow. It's very bizarre. We've had 2 people be disqualified from this session. Gregors, I can only assume what Gregors did is when the pit lane exit opened, is when he came out the pit lane exit, he was having to let someone go, maybe. He was having to let someone go, and must have just stood still on the pit lane exit, because he disqualified himself. And that's put him down all the way in the P17. He's behind Slicks, who's also been disqualified from the session, so not ideal at all. So I'm looking at Lofty now. He's on a 21.2 first sector. No idea what kind of sectors we are going to be expecting, because it is not an optimal track at the moment. As Lofty's invalidated as well. Now, I don't think that will cost him too much, because this is not the optimal grip at the end of a session. Especially considering the track has only just dried, as the Williams driver has just popped his car into P1. Gregor said his steering wheel disconnected. How that explains it. So parked in a dodgy location with the steering wheel disconnected, disqualifying himself. Yes, I am fully aware that Slick's had a qualifying ban, but just remarking that you also disqualified yourself as well. That is... It's our general standard procedure for a quali ban. As I said earlier, I'm not entirely sure it was the best idea to do so in the middle of a session. And as you joined late, or was Alligators also invalidated? So everyone keeps on invalidating their soft laps here. What about Leap Year Girl? Leap Year Girl's valid. What about Joe? Is Joe valid? No. So yeah, this is really odd because it's been a completely dry track for about 5 minutes, and there is still not been a quickest lap on the soft tyres. The fastest lap is still on the inters. But I think this is going to change as Leap Year Girl is about to cross the line now. And there we go, that's a bit more like it. 4-second improvement on the fastest lap time. It is a Williams 1-2 at the moment. James Vowles absolutely loving life. But is he loving life for long? Is he loving life for long? No, he's not, because TIR Spider Jr. in the Alpine has also gone fastest. What about Lofty? Invalidated his first run, doesn't invalidate his second. The next person I'm looking at is Stars Orphan, but Stars Orphan's run wide at the third chicane. What about Punisher? Punisher's in the first sector. What about Colden? Colden's invalidated and is driven off track as well. Who's pushing? Leap Year Girl's pushing again. 2/10 up. Is that going to be enough? Needs a 1:12.4 to be in contention with the fastest lap time, but no, peels into the pits. About SLR Moley. SLR Moley deploying that overtake button on the back straight in the Aston Martin. Stars Orphan, despite making that big mistake, has still gone 8/10 quicker than TIR Spider Jr. That just shows how much this track is improving as Moley's invalidated, and that is another invalidation. Moley's lap time would have been fastest by 7/10, again showing the track evolution, but I'm just looking at every single lap and it's invalid, apart from Punisher's, who's also gone fastest. As we are going to have a second commentator who has just joined us and has hopefully ticked his box, so I'm not going to be here bored on my own. I mean, Division 3 is never boring, but it's much more exciting when you have someone with you.
Hopefully those drivers can hopefully give us the entertainment tonight on this slightly muggy Saturday, at least in where I am.
Been pretty muggy in Canada, to be fair, as well. It's been raining at the start of quali, and it is now dry, but it's still dry and very cloudy. The track's dried up ridiculously quickly. It's basically gone back to full dry conditions.
It's going to be a case of last driver across the line then.
Probably, although I think we're pretty much near dry conditions now. It looks pretty much bone dry. Hicklin's on a 10.9 and going off Division 3 times. That sounds pretty reasonable, kind of where you'd maybe expectedly some of the drivers to be. On pole by half a second at the moment. If there was red flags on this game, Hicklin would be praying for red flags, but there's not. So, well, there is red flags in the race, but like in qualifying, that'd be quite cool.
Anyway.
That'd be quite cool.
That's the problem is with, especially without ghosting, they just don't activate. It's ridiculously hard. Unless you are Division 2 or Australia that one time.
Yeah.
It's just very, very hard to get them.
Yeah, definitely is. It'd be cool if they had them in quali, though, I think. Like, if someone binned it in quali...
it'd be too cheesable, to be honest. Kind of like how you can have cheese
they're so hard. They're so hard to bring out, though, as you said. But as Rico's gone fastest with a 10.7, Rico, I think, set the initial pace on the intermediate tyre at the beginning of the session, and clearly has pace, it has to be said, Rico, in that Red Bull. But Alligator, interesting gamer tab because he spelt alligator wrong. But in the Ferrari, currently on an 18.5, which is nearly 8 seconds off pole position. So needs to get a lap in. This is crazy. Only 7 people set laps on the dries. And Alligator goes fastest. More competitive laps on the dries, I should say. Bad Otter did some laps on the hards at the start of the session because it just felt like it, I guess. But everyone else. I'm gonna look at Joe actually. Joe is in the final sector.
Some purples coming
in
through on the
that
Alpine.
Alpine.
There are some purples coming through.
Yeah, using a lot of overtake.
22.5.
Saving his overtake quite clearly for the final sector. Trying to use as much as he possibly can. Where is this going to put the Alpine? It's P2! P2 lets just over a tenth off pole position. It's a pretty solid lap that from the Alpine driver. Might have time for another one, but needs to massively cool down tyres and also massively fuel save, I think. But
if you want the
potentially
numbers,
be doable.
600ths in the middle sector to Alligator, half a tenth in the final sector to Alligator. So maybe a bit higher wings, maybe, because that's going to slow him down that main straight, or it could just be a bit of a different battery usage that's helping Alligator.
I think he played the final chicane
bit.
really safe as well. He took the final chicane very safe.
Because if you want to go back to back, you can't invalidate there. It is basically the end of your qualifying if you invalidate there, because it will be at this and next.
Yeah, exactly. This and next lap is probably most famous at Canada, I would say, more than any other track. It's certainly a bit brutal here, as I'm on board with Stars Orphan in the Red Bull. I'd probably have missed someone else who's about to cross the line, but Stars Orphan, all a bit unsighted, it must be said, from the Williams ahead of him. That's not going to help. But does it matter for Stars Orphan? Where's Stars Orphan going to go? Half a second improvement, only P5, and I have to say, that block definitely affected Stars Orphan, it must be said, in the final chicane. It's a chicane where you need to absolutely throw it over the curb.
Ooh, purple sector. Who's that in the hat? Because the thing is that it's Punisher.
Oh, Moley P2.
James has set the purple middle, 22.3. Moley's was a purple final sector. This could be a big lap if he gets this.
Yeah, Punisher needs to get this final sector right. Final chicane, hopping over, quite safe, using a lot of battery. What's this going to be from Punisher? It's going to be pole! Ooh. It's going to be pole at the moment. But is it going to be beaten? Because Hicklin is also over a tenth up. SLR Hicklin flew through the final chicane and does enough to get P1 as well.
Oh, this is it.
Right at the end. Is that going to be pole position? Or is Lofty going to spoil Hicklin's day? Up towards the line, Lofty misses out by a tenth. So it is going to be, as I'm looking just to be sure that no one else is on laps. No, they're not. It is SLR Hicklin.
Wow.
SLR Hicklin on pole position. Right at the death. That is so many drivers improved at the end. And SLR Hicklin is your pole sitter in that RB. What a lap from Hicklin.
22.1 middle. That's a tenth and a half quicker exactly than what Punisher did. Although he did lose a tenth in the final. Ultimately, the first sector as well, giving a tenth difference as well. So that's where that tenth and a quarter come into. It's that first two sectors.
Yeah.
Could it be again a case of higher wings? Again, I thought Punisher was quite poor in his battery at the end. He was sort of in that slow burn phase of that 6-7% where it just doesn't go. And maybe that's come to bite him a little bit, despite the fact he was a tenth quicker.
I think that's just you've got to put that down to one shot qualifying, really.
Oh yeah, and don't forget
at the end of the session, like this is probably one of the worst laps to have a one-shot quali session at. I would say.
So many variables that you can chuck you out. Like how at the end for me there, I was on board Punisher, just going through the Seb Vettel chicane as such. You get that curve wrong, you go a bit too left, you're gonna invalidate. You didn't cut it right, you're too loose on the exit. You're gonna sign yourself in a wall. So you've got to be safe, but at the same time you've got to send it to get up there, and
yeah,
that's what those top drivers will do. They will know that limit that they can go to whilst also being safe.
Indeed. But your top 10 in qualifying: Hicklin, Punisher, Lofty, Alligator, Moley, Joe, Rico, Bad Otter, Stars Orphan, and Maxwell. A really, really mixed up grid, it must be said, when you look at the championship standings. All of the championship contenders, main championship contenders, well, the championship contenders that are racing mainly are Gregors and Moley. Petronas is missing this week, and Moley's in 5th, which is pretty solid. But Gregor's got disqualified for that wheel issue.
Anything can happen though. It is Summit League racing. That is the beauty of sim racing. Anything can happen. You could start in Cambodia and you could end up on the top step of the podium.
That
It's-
is very true. I mean,
Tell you what though,
I
the
mean,
penalties. This will be a key thing as well. And I've looked a bit. I'm gonna have a blooming iPad full of track limit warnings coming up and trying to figure out who it is because not everybody's got a gamer tag. But penalties have determined races round Canada. I recall, what was it, season 11 Canada? He took the race away from me because I stupidly picked up even a speeding pen and a corner cutting pen. And so, I know someone like Maxwell, for example. He's a very good driver at keeping it within those white lines.
that is true.
He
Yes.
could very well benefit from a situation like that. If you get a late safety car, 2 laps to pull 3 seconds at minimum, bloody difficult.
Speaking of Beast and winning races on penalties, he won the race last night in Division 2 also on penalties. He got no penalties in that race. Finished 3.5 seconds behind Invade, but Invade had 12 seconds
Oh,
and
Jesus
dropped down
Christ.
to P6.
Oh,
Now
Jesus
that
Christ.
is just. I mean, we've already seen it, and typically in Division 3, there's always a little bit more carnage. There's a little bit more room for error. There's a few more mistakes. It is natural. Not trying to diss any of the drivers, but that is just how it is, and that does typically mean more penalties. Also, as well with a track like this, typically you see a few more pad drivers having fun just on the pad, and with the pad, it's very hard to be precise, as I'm sure you know at a track like this, and can make the penalties very easy. Strategy here, unfortunately, is a bit boring. Most strategies are a bit boring on this game. There seem to be just a one-stop, plain one-stop, medium hard, or hard medium. Sometimes if the harder tyres are awful, then you do soft medium or medium soft. But yeah, I'm just hoping for safety cars to spice that up. Not too many because Belgium was boring because there was like 10 laps of safety cars in a 22-lap race, and I can't be arsed with that. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I would always say if you're in a division like this, start on your medium tyres because if they're safety cars, the harder tyre is absolutely lovely and very durable. We saw in Monza actually in particular there was a lap 5 safety car, and that was the only safety car of the race. And everyone who boxed onto the hard tyres at that safety car was the drivers that were in contention for the race victory. So that is what happens.
So you talk about tyres. If we're on that, some tracks like Jeddah, for example, that hard tyre does not wear an ounce. If we're on that similar compound, you could see many drivers going quite away. And don't forget, there's going to be a fair amount of sets of soft tyres potentially available in those drivers' back pockets as well, given the fact it went from intermediates to dries. So I
Very
mean,
true.
if you're looking on the strategy page now, well, not the strategy page, but the driver list now, you see Bad Otters in the hard, for example. Could he be thinking, look, play the hard tyre, gamble my luck for a safety car? Would I need to pit, or if I've got
Yeah.
track position massively, stick a soft on and just hope they don't burn.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
Bad
think it's
Otter,
what we want.
PA, he does quite like to go for a bit of an alternate strategy, does Bad Otter. So
I
we'll see if it
respect it.
works for him. Fun fact about the hard tyres here. On
Hoping
where
it's-
they can do on where before reaching puncture range, they can do 2 entire race distances at this track, almost.
That's what I mean. So I think if anyone has done their prep or, you know, could even just use a service, let's say like SRC, I know they're very good. You might have that upper inside for information that look, I can take a tire ridiculously long and actually kind of use it to almost give yourself that massive tire advantage before going on the attack with someone. Moley has stuck a soft on. I don't know if you're on that page. race to red page.
Is that
That's
just messing with
interesting.
people, or is Moley just hoping for a really early safety car?
Depends how many people
Because from
can
my
be asked to
experience
look at
on
it.
this game, the softs are the C5s, and on this game, more than most, it seems like what type of soft tyre, what type of medium tyre, what type of hard tyre matters a lot. I think
Best
you
mate
had
has done it as
experience.
well.
You had an experience, I believe it was in one of the pre-season races. I think it was the McEwen one, putting on a hard tyre at the start of the race at Spain, which
Was it Spain?
really
Yeah.
hindered you at the start of the race. As it's lights out and we are away, and Punisher looks to have got the lead over SLR Hicklin. Absolutely flying start from Punisher. Further down, it looks like Joe's got the move on SLR Moley, who are battling side by side, and Moley is on the softs. Your eyes did not deceive you. Moley has gone for the soft tyres. There's a yellow flag in the background. That is a Williams, I believe, who's gone round. That is Leap Year Girl. It's unfortunate for the Williams driver. As also potentially having a bit of an off is Rico as well, as they just get the tyres up. Moley and Maxwell have gone aggressive on those soft compound tyres. So it'd be interesting to see what their general strategies are.
Yeah, Rico was caught up in something. Maxwell's gone up 3 from 10th to 7th, so that's soft tyre working for him. Moley on the other side, though, looking to see what he can do at the back of this front four, such as a Ferrari going very wide up against that wall as we go into the Wall of Champions for the first time tonight.
Yellow flag again. And that's K1 Skies had a bit of an off. K1 Skies qualified, I believe, in P11 and has now dropped down to P16. So an awful start for K1 Skies.
Corner cutting penalty, so he must have done something, maybe at the chicane, maybe. There's also a corner cutting warning already for Alligator in the Ferrari.
Another driver I'm looking at, driver who had a quali ban, who was right up there last week. Slicks, I think. I'm going to call him SL1X4. I would say that's Slicks.
That's what I call it.
Oh, he's absolutely butchered the
Ames
first
on the
chicane, as we
grass.
said.
Ames just went on the grass, went incredibly deep, almost, you could say. I mentioned him before, Seb Vettel. That's a penalty for Rico incredibly early.
Oh, at this rate, Rico's going to get disqualified from the race. That would not be ideal. But Alligator and Hicklin are right behind Punisher now. Lofty's also right behind them. So
Dipped the tyre into the grass on the right-hand side is what he did. Tried to open it up as much as he could for himself, but he went too far. Clipped the grass, spun. He had to do a decent job to catch it.
There's another yellow flag. Who's that that's gone off?
Slicks.
Oh, that's Slicks. Slicks has gone off at the hairpin. So that is just another person going off, and that is just the nature of this track, it must be said. So easy to make mistakes, and people seriously struggling at the moment. And it looks like a 6-car fight in the top of this train, as Moley is trying to nip it around the outside of Lofty, getting much better traction at the moment on those softs. Oh, has a little bit of a moment on exit, and it kind of looked like Moley had done a little bit of a swipe, but I know Moley, he would not be the driver to do that. It's very clear that Moley just had a moment on the exit, and then Lofty was kind of an innocent bystander. Hopefully they've not picked up any damage from that. It'd be very frustrating for the pair of them if they did. Very innocent mistake. But Lofty picked up a penalty in the following corner.
Yeah, a lot of cars picking up penalties as well. Punisher picking up, I believe, a second warning. The thing is, trying to see on this, it gives me implement car number. All the usernames don't add up correctly because they're all numbers, so I'm trying to figure out at the same time. Lofty's around.
Oh, Lofty's round. And that has potentially broken up the train a bit, as I think Joe was right behind him and had to ease off because of Lofty's mistake. And Alligator's now gone for the race lead. So Alligator used a lot of battery to try and get past Punisher, and Punisher's now dropped down to P3 now. Could even be P4 as Moley's potentially having a look. It could be. This is the lap from hell for Punisher. It was in the race lead and is now really under pressure even for P4.
Could argue, he's had a poor run with the DR without having that DRS originally, so maybe Alligator, and then if there was a bit of a battle going into it, he's going to lose out to Hicklin, who's going to be wanting to get past. There's a nice visual glitch of my position indicator. Someone.
As I'm looking now at Moley, as Moley is now suddenly under pressure. So was attacking Punisher, but now it looks like these softs are already awful. it must be said. Already very bad, as Moley has lost a second now to Punisher on this lap, and I don't think is going to get DRS. So this should make things very easy for the Alpine of Joe behind him to make the move. Joe's got a lot of battery, so needs to use it to try and get past Moley, and does so. And here we go. Punisher and Hicklin. Punisher gets past Hicklin. Joe gets past Moley. So two overtakes on the same straight. One for P4, one for P2. And the Alpine of Joe now needs to try and close up to the top three, as they are squabbling. As you can see, Punisher goes deep. And there we are. That's Joe and Moley already back in the train. So that is just so how easy it is to make a mistake. And then you're there. Alligator, though, in P1. Looking quite comfortable at the moment. Looking like he's got a bit of pace over Punisher, it must be said, at this phase of the race.
Gotta think there could be a bit of a, moment at times. You can see already 2 attempts, 3 attempts in that corner alone. Punisher's not got the confidence in himself right now. He's had a few mistakes, a few corner cuttings. Obviously, he had the moment lap 2 where he touched the grass. You see him sliding a bit there on the exit of that chicane, and it's now looking like Alligator. Look, if you get these cars to try and battle, you are going to extend your gap massively. The likes of Hicklin or Joe are going to be wanting Punisher to get out of the way so they can get to that DRS of Alligator and push on that way.
Yeah, definitely. There's a yellow flag in the midfield.
No, I think it might be Rico again.
Yeah, I think it is Rico. I think you're right. It's now Lofty's got past Moley, and that is Punisher.
There we go.
Who's also picked up a time penalty. So Joe and Alligator absolutely loving this penalty situation at the moment, as they are the only 2 drivers in the top 5 now without a time penalty.
Saying that, Joe picked up a warning on this previous lap. Number 10, that's P3. Hicklin's also picked up another warning, as Rico, as I was still on him, has just had a little slide out of turn 1, so his race is not going very good, given he started, 7th on the grid, down 6 as it is, and his race is coming in. It's Stars.
Oh, and so I'm having a look at Gregors, and Gregors has just done Bad Otter around the outside at the second chicane. Brilliant traction from Gregors, as Bad Otter is struggling at the moment on his hard compound tyres. And now Stars Orphan ahead of Gregors had a bit of a moment. Gregors, of course, one of the championship contenders, as I mentioned before the race, looking to try and make these moves. Colden trying to go around the outside of Maxwell as well, and I think Maxwell's picked up damage somewhere. If you have a look, I think his front left end plate is missing.
See it.
That very clear luminescent green
And this
front
is the best
wing.
camera shot for it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, front end plate's gone. I'll see if he had a collision with a car that's been noted by the game. No, so he might have.
Oh, Joe and Hicklin going side by side now. This is for the podium, remember? Joe on the right-hand side, so he's going to get worse traction out of this, and Hicklin just out-drags him with the racing line on the exit. There's yellow flag in sector 1. Don't know that yellow flag is 4, to be honest.
Yeah, I noticed that last lap out of the... Ooh, that was very close between Joe and Hicklin. Joe almost going into the back of him, but I noticed last lap, it might have been one I just cut on board, but out of this DRS straight into that chicane, it looked like Hicklin had a moment. Punisher didn't get a great exit, but that's where Joe caught up and has earned himself another chance here to try and get a go. He looks a lot more comfortable in this section of the track compared to Hicklin. Are we going to see a move into turn 1 or the hairpin now as different lines coming on board?
Punisher also has a bad entry as well. Loses the car on entry. And
Greg is behind
potentially
as well.
allowing
This is
Hicklin
getting
to make the
spicy.
move.
Slicks time.
Yeah,
Penalty is a
Colden
train of 4.
Oh, here we go. Joe up the inside of Hicklin in the final chicane. Brakes super late. That is really aggressive.
Blame me.
Oh, drifts on the exit. And surely picked up a warning for that as well. But
No,
Joe does
did
make
you?
the move. He didn't pick up a warning. So it's just been fine. He really on the edge there. That's a great little overtake, that is. It must be said. Like, fully aggressive on the brakes. I mean, it is lap 7. It was lap 7 of a 35-lap race, so that is certainly
Long
a
way
choice to try and make that kind of overtake there. As Lofty just got Hicklin.
Nice job. Slipped. I think is that pit stop? I don't think that's legit.
Yeah, well, Slick's got damage quite early on, so...
I wondered why he was down there. or at least
on those hard compound tyres.
obviously
Those tyres
Moley and
will be
Maxi
able to take
making
us into the
stops
race,
as well.
but yeah,
Seven,
they did.
they went
They're on a
on.
2-stop, interestingly, because they've gone on
Well, yeah, I
some
mean,
set
they've got the
mediums.
tyres. You may as well try something different, especially if you're feeling a bit uncomfortable with your patient. And you feel like you've kind of got to do something in a very linear game like F124 can be, where you're all on that one same singular strategy. You know, you do something different. You can at least say, well, later in the race, time penalty for Joe. You know, later in the race, you have that tyre advantage, and then boom, you're going to be so much quicker than those guys doing a one-stop. If the wear starts to get...
Joe's now picked up a time penalty as well. So P2, 3, 4, and 5 are now all even in terms of penalties. But Joe does definitely look a bit quicker than Punisher, it must be said. Interesting to see kind of what he can do in clean air relative to Alligator. That Ferrari in P1, of course.
Alligator's got a de facto 5-second lead right now. So they can just play the safe game. They can play, you know, if they want to just play the same strategy as Punisher, play the same strategy as Joe. Maybe Lofty, if he can find that, you know, second and a half. That is a Mercedes, and they Slicks and Maxi, I think, have come together, or Spider and Maxi have come together at turn 1.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That might be Spider and Maxi, but I mean, if it is, I'm sure we'll see it in the stewards' room after this race. But yeah, Div 3 drivers do love to send in an incident. They've got us very busy in the stewards' room last week. It must be said.
Is that why you've now asked for some more?
Probably. Although one of them who said yes was Slicks himself, so who is in Division 3. So that doesn't really help for these incidents. But it does for the others.
So looking at these last few lap times, Ali 14.2, Punisher 14.1, Joe 14.2. They're all pretty much similar pace. The only one slacking, you could argue right now, is Lofty Boss. He's not in that DRS train.
Oh, as Punisher's had a massive snap on those medium compound tyres.
Oh, and again,
really struggling with this higher tyre wear, Punisher, to keep the car in a straight line even. And I think this is definitely going to allow Joe to make a move on this lap.
Problem
and Joe's
is,
probably getting
Moley's
very
only
frustrated
doing
here.
14s. Moley's only doing 14s on those fresh tyres. So if you look in terms of, you know, someone who was in that sort of leading pack, Moley's not really making a dent as of now into anyone's lead, and so, you know, in those hard tyres at the end of the race, as we see Joe blitz past Punisher, my word, not even much of the battery being used. You know, is Moley going to have as much advantage as he thinks? This Punisher picks up another corner cutting. Wall of Champions.
Oh, someone's gone off in the Wall of Champions. It's Hicklin. Hicklin's lost his entire wing, and Spider's crashed.
Out. Can't see you.
And that's a safety car.
George Russell spot.
Indeed, on the exit of the third chicane, it's a very tricky corner. I'm going to go on board with BGR, and unfortunately the car's disappeared before seeing.
He was stuck plumb right, I think, by where the marshal's waving the yellow flag. He's only caught a massive slide, and it's just gone doink into that wall. Moley's in the pits anyway, so it seems like his soft tyre has really backfired. Maxi had that incident presumably with Spider, so both soft tyres really not going well. Can I presume that the leading pack up to where Hicklin was missed the safety car line for the pit stops?
Well, Alligator was already in turn 1 when it came out, because it came out basically just as Hicklin had crashed in the World of Champions, and Hicklin was about 5 or 6 seconds behind Alligator. So they definitely didn't pick up the safety car. And I'm expecting pretty much everyone on the mediums in the pits now for set hards. Key thing now is to not speed.
Yep.
Especially when you're in a safety car, you're not going to lose out at all, really.
Here's an interesting thought of about 10 seconds before the decision is made. What does Otter do on these hards? Stays out.
He chooses to stay out, and we saw a driver do this yesterday. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Com. It was on the hard tyre. He's also going to take the lead, because Alligator is really close. Otter does take the lead. Alligator is probably a bit frustrated with that, to be honest, because with Otter, because if Otter was behind him, Alligator could then absolutely bolt it. Maxwell said the word karma for the
Yeah,
retirement
I knew
of,
something had gone on. Wasn't quite
of
sure
Spider,
what. And
so I can only assume that Maxwell and Spider had an incident.
do I maybe check his Twitch and see if he's clipped it already?
I mean, we're on a safety car, so you could do. A Skies is boxed for mediums. That's an odd strategy.
Well, depends what
Did he
the
start
whale
on
was
hards?
saying.
No, he started on
I will-
mediums, didn't he?
I will tell you now.
Why is Maxwell
was
in the pits from his hards?
Medium, hard, medium. So they went on to the hards, presumably. Literally a lap before safety car came out, what they've done is put on the hard tyre, then got off it because they think mediums will go to the end comfortably. Bit of
That's not the
gamesmanship.
call. That's not the call. Hards are way better to the end of the race from now. I'm not really sure why Maxwell's pit himself as well, to be honest. Because those hards, this is pretty much the perfect pit lap for the hards to take them to the end of the race. And they are a lovely tyre on this track when they get up to temperature.
Unless there's some gamesmanship and, dragging out the safety car by, taking that extra bit of time to pit, you're on fresher tyres, no one as they slowly accumulate 1-2% wear, which will add up if you can drag out the safety car longer.
Yep. Someone who's in this race now as well, who I think will have really good pace. He's won 2 races this season. So he clearly does have the pace. Who, of course, got that disqualification qualifying is Gregors. Gregors quietly made his way up the field, but was very much, even though he was in a good position on, like, P6, or P5, actually, Sky's boxed. It's sped in pit lane.
Yeah, that'll be a retirement then, I think, if you're speeding in the pit lane like that.
The safety car's out, though. You're still in the race. Like, just continue.
Why am I getting the
bro.
vibrations? What the hell? Off the game.
Maxwell's just keeping it firm with the older mediums. I'm sorry, but that is not the strategy.
I have no idea. They've gone back onto presumably their only set of mediums because they are 10 laps old.
10 lap old set of mediums, and
I don't know what's going on.
Skies is now just I don't know. Skies and Maxwell just swap positions.
I think Maxi would have accidentally overtaken on the safety car because of the
Probably got an illegal overtake. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're both just nowhere. It's weird. Anyway, what I was saying, Gregors. Although Gregors was in P5, he had the issue of being quite a far distance away from the top drivers. Naturally, field spread at the start of an F1 race. It happens in real life as well as the game. And Gregor's now P6 is now with the guys ahead of him.
Key thing is
no penalties. Yes, that is.
So in theory, if you are just going to train everyone to the end, Otter is going to fall back because of those 11 lap older tyres. It's a game of how quickly is everyone going to get through. Can you do it safely, and how quick can you get to Alligator whilst keeping it in between those white lines? Because again, if you are just one big train to the end, like you can get, if there is no silly shenanigans of stupid battles or just mistakes, then you are going to get so many positions because of those penalties, and you're protected from Rico behind. He's got a penalty. Colden hasn't.
Colden hasn't. But I think Colden was a bit slower than Gregors. Because they were together, if you remember. And then a few laps later, Colden was a couple of seconds back. So Colden definitely not really.
Ooh, in this lap. So that
I don't think Colden will be a huge threat to Gregors. But Skies could. No,
he's also got 16 seconds of penalties, so I think no action for the rest of the race will be. It's just whether they do.
Skies is just going to hope for DNFs, basically. And let's see what Bad Otter's restart's like. Bad Otter, with how powerful DRS Slipstream is on this game, I think Bad Otter will leave it as late as possible.
Depends if Ali can catch a glimpse side by side.
And Ali here is definitely going to be looking.
Not close enough to do it
and
normally.
making the move quickly. As Punisher thinking about a move on Joe, but then backs out quite quickly.
Joe go deep there. I
Trying to get
saw
a
him
little
very
switch.
close to the curb.
Yeah, I think he
Hammer's
broke late
struggling on traction.
because Hammers was side by side with him. So Joe clearly being quite respectful, trying to leave the racing room. That's what we like to see.
Super is round at turn 1. Slicks has picked up a penalty, I presume, at the turn 3 and 4 chicane. As we see, he's keeping the lead, he's doing his job as of now, but how long is that going to be? What resources are you going to use to get past? Similar battery levels as of now, but it's going to be into that Wall of Champions is a bit of a loose rear end from Otter because of those wear on those tyres.
And Slicks has gone. Slicks has spun. Third
Yeah,
chicane. So it's just a disaster of a race, getting even worse, really, for Slicks. All the way down in P14, having absolutely no luck at the moment, it must be said, in this race. I suppose you could just get all of your incidents out in the bad race, in one bad race. Yeah, it is going to get close. Alligator.
Not close enough.
Alligator needs to make the move quickly here. There's the other flag for another spin. Yep.
Again, like the longer Ali stays behind, obviously they know they've got, 3 seconds on hand on everyone but Gregors. Gregors hasn't made a. No one's really made a move since on this first lap. It's going to be with that DRS. I think Ali's going to be looking to maybe get ahead and ditch Otter. Try and get that second clear as quick as you can, because then they're a problem for everyone else.
Yep. Yep. But the issue is Joe in P3 staying with Alligator very nicely. Punisher in P4 staying with them both very nicely. So both of these drivers could potentially go through very quickly, as that is a penalty for Bad Otter.
Looked like he had a bit
That's
of a weird
not what
exit.
Otter needed.
Could be very
And Punisher's
wrong.
thinking about the move on Joe as well, but again, still can't do it. Punisher was a bit slower than Joe near the end of the stint in the first stint. There seems to be a lot nicer on the hards.
Golden's just lost 2 positions going into the hairpin, so whether it was a really poor exit from that chicane there, leading into, Moley and Hickling getting by.
Oh, let's go side by side. Punisher and Joe, and Lofty has passed them, both of them, has he? Yes, he has. Lofty has got past both of them. Down the inside, as Joe and Punisher were going side by side, they made contact a bit through the final chicane. I think that's just kind of rubbing this race in, really. It's a corner that's very hard to go side by side on. But Lofty says, thank you very much, I will take that P3, and is now going to be the next driver to try and chase down Alligator. Alligator's gone very cautious, though, it must be said, on Bad Otter, but doesn't have that much battery.
Yeah,
Alligator
might
will
just
know
be a thing higher winds.
Alligator will know that Bad Otter will have worse pace on these older tyres. Just save your battery. Just save your battery and try and make the move cleanly. Bad Otter, we have a look at Bad Otter's battery, 50%. That's quite healthy.
That's
good enough.
Mercedes Slicks.
Yep. It seems to be one of about 2 or 3 drivers.
This has got to be it. If you don't take this
needs to be.
chance, then it's looking rough. But don't forget, Otter, if he's wanting to try and fight it, maybe knows about the battery, could have a little go into turn 1, maybe if the exit's right, but obviously you won't have the DRS, which is a huge problem. And there we go, Alligator.
And there's potentially going to have to look behind to Lofty as well, because Lofty has the DRS and Otter doesn't. Lofty is not close enough, that is correct. Joe and Punisher still going side by side.
Ooh.
This is a battle that's lasted for a lot of the first stint and a lot of the second as well. Oh, there's a bit of contact there. Did Joe leave Punisher a full car's width? It's potentially, that's up for debate, it must be said.
Not on board, that's a Libya go around turn 1.
That is Punisher down to P6. And there we go, Lofty needs to get past Bad Otter here. Crucial that he makes this move. Make contact, Bad Otter goes off the road. Is this going to allow Joe through on the outside? Yes, it is. But they're still going side by side. Bad Otter not giving this up. Bad Otter knows that track position is vitally important.
No. Greg, as you've gone for a gap you thought existed. Tags that right rear wheel. They somehow keep position, but that's going to affect Gregors, because he's not within a second, albeit you've got the whole lap to make it up, but you're going to be in a bit of a position where even Hammers has got by now, my word. That's that little split.
I think Gregors recognised that mistakes were made with that with that move, and deliberately eased up to make sure that Bad Otter kept the position. From what I can,
you could argue, but the thing is, it's that little split moment of indecisiveness that will, stop you winning races at times. Going for that daft move, that is.
Oh, Slicks is retired. Is that
lane.
Is in the pits? Okay.
Pit lane, but the flag is out for turn 1 apparently.
I think that's probably because there was another moment at turn 1 for someone else.
Yeah, Leap Year's in the
Leap Year
pits as
Girl's
well.
also in the pit. Yep.
You say you take that little split moment of indecisiveness and boom, you've lost yourself. Well, the gap from Otter to Joe, 1.7. You've lost about 8 tenths even, just on that alone. And Gregors is in a position where you can easily, guarantee P2 in a way, as long as you keep it sensible, keep it on the road, and don't give yourself any problems to deal with.
The only issue now is that 2-second gap from Bad Otter to Joe could potentially make things really awkward for Gregors, because might not be able to make most use of that.
Not much straight line speed as well, I've got to say.
I think what that is that they're really.
But when you think about DRS and the exits, all the permutations, that was not much speed, and that single moment where you have made contact with Otter could ultimately determine your fate for the race. That is how league racing can be in a competitive grid.
Definitely.
Only just
I think the thing is with the setups is that a lot of people would have loaded a setup from TT, and the CC setup here has really high wings, and some people might be running a lot lower than that. So like there's definitely going to be a split between people who use different kinds of setups. Of course, there's a lot of straights here, but then there's a lot of high-speed chicanes.
Lofty's picked up another penalty, by the way.
Yeah, picked up a couple of laps ago, I think.
Yeah, I was just looking down at my warnings leaderboard on my iPad, and I can remember actually seeing it. Come on, Lofty will take the lead. So Alligator not quite having that pace, just immediately pushed away. Probably you could argue due to the fact that you spent all that time behind Bad Otter that everyone.
Oh, Joe makes it 3 wide into turn 1.
My God,
between Lofty and Bad Otter. There's huge contact. There's huge contact, and Joe's picked up damage. And that was very aggressive, it must be said, to try and make that 3 wide. That's one of those situations where you think Ayrton Senna would say you got to go for a gap that exists.
Go for a gap. You're not racing, right?
That's one of my least favourite quotes, it must be said, because of the state that it's had on league racing. Because everyone will just make the excuse and pretend they're Ayrton Senna.
This is huge for Gregors, who's just got past Otter, finally. Finally, Gregors has got past Otter. He knows P3 potentially could have wing damage. That's a pit lane retirement or someone binning it at the Wall of Champions. Gregors finally getting past that burden that had been the 11-lap-old harder tyres of Bad Otter. Now he has to work his way towards Punisher, but you've got to remember, Joe's got wing damage. If he has to come in, that's another position gain. That's another car out the way. Problem is, you haven't got DRS or Punisher at the minute. And, Joe could then be...
there's a big crash! Gregors, Bad Otter are both round at the final chicane. You said Gregors had cleared Bad Otter. I wonder whether Bad Otter has maybe hit his rear end or something. Because
I don't think he cleared a second.
Down.
Yeah, I don't think he...
Bad Otter's in the pit lane. I wonder whether Bad Otter has gone for his pit stop. He's gone for his pit stop and has broken too late and has just rear-ended Gregors going into the pit entry. That would be a disastrous mistake. And, well,
it wouldn't make sense. Which is, after all the hard work Gregors had done, making sure he got through up until the safety car as cleanly as possible. So I think it was P9, if I'm right in saying, or P6. No, it's P6, wasn't it? All that hard work gone. Obviously, it could be a pit lane. It could be, a side-by-side moment. That's, because
we
Otto
don't know.
was kind of
speculation.
Forced into the pit lane from where he was. When I went on board with him, he was pretty much at the line. So, when I said he cleared it, he got ahead, but I don't think he cleared it second. Also with DRS, battery, I think Gregors is on a bit of a higher wing. Simply just got caught up even. An incident sparked from there.
Yeah. yeah. Golden Egg Fryer in the chat said, "What a nightmare for Gregors." Yes, I absolutely agree. Gregors was in slim contention for the race win. I mean, Alligator, with that lack of penalties as well, is still very much the firm favourite for the victory, but certainly the likes of Joe and Lofty, with their 6 seconds of penalties each, you'd fancy
Is
Gregors to get them both.
is an interesting thought. Everyone around this leading at the top 5, bar Ali, 6-second penalties. Rico, when you look at his race, only 5.5 off the lead. He's just ruined my entire point by getting a 6-second. He
Were
was
you
on
just
3
going to say,
seconds.
yeah.
He could have had an outside look at the podium potentially, but that's got
Unlucky. I
It's
have to say, never
annoying.
do a monologue about how good a driver's doing, because immediately they will piss on your parade and ruin
As
it.
is Alita Lofty right now going ahead into turn 1. Great segue. Unbelievable, Jeff. As Ali, I mean, look, in this situation, Ali could just be taking it calmly, knowing you've got 6 seconds in hand to pretty much the entire grid. The only closest one to it is Modi's 11 seconds off, and I don't think,
Yeah.
barring a
Can't
miracle,
just
that
chill him,
Modi's going to
really.
find a second a lap. Yeah, but the problem is, you're using all your resources. You see 19% on Ali's battery, 35 on Lofty, 50 on Joe, so he's been burning his ability. That's because he's lost out on DRS, as Otter is a pit lane retirement. Meaning DNF number 4, Max, you've got a penalty, you've ruined my pre-race hope as well, knowing how good you are at staying within the white lines. So we'll go with tits up, Sam.
Yeah, yeah, and at the moment it seems like things are kind of equalising, it must be said. Alligator has broken the DRS of Lofty, clearly managing the tyre wear a bit better than the McLaren driver. Joe kind of holding firm in P3, it must be said. Definitely slower than the top 2. Definitely slower than the top 2, Joe, but does have that wing damage to contend with. So certainly a very solid race.
I completely skipped my mind, and that could come back to a certain Mr. Moley's attention if he can get a move on, because everyone in front of him has a 6-second penalty. He's currently 7 seconds off Rico. If Punisher starts to
agonising. It's quite agonising at the moment for Moley. That gap.
Just think, well, that's a 9 seconds. So, you know, especially as long as you keep it in the white lines, get a bit more of a move on. Joe starts to fall back into this pack a little bit with that wing damage, and you know, as the tyre wears get a bit higher, albeit it's on this hard compound tyre, you're going to need a lot of holding up and a lot of battling, and I don't think that's going to necessarily be his best friend there, because I mean, this is P4, even potentially P3 if it goes all right for Murray at the minute, that he can try and get. He needs to get a move on.
Yeah, but at the moment just doesn't look like he's particularly got pace. Didn't really have that much pace on the newer set of mediums at the start of the race, and doesn't really seem to have too much pace now, Moley. I mean, it's keeping the gap kind of stagnant, but I think Moley will definitely be disappointed you can't really get up to this, because those penalties often cost a really good, often get Moley a really good position, and at the moment,
Nice move from Nick on the outside.
It might not even be Punisher that he gets, because Punisher's got the gap at 9 seconds at the moment.
That's what I mean. He needs to get a move on, but at the same time, you can't just rely on everybody else fighting. That is the Super, who's going to be a lap down in a minute. He's crashed or spun coming out of the third chicane on the track. But, I mean, if we look at the last laps purely, Moley's in the 15s, which would put him at the slowest driver on that last lap. So that's kind of saying something. You got Ali in the 13s, Lofty in the 13s, Joe a 14-1 on the last lap, but with that wing damage as we've seen, Moley's basically 4 tenths at best, slowing everyone else, which is really just going to sort of stagnate him at P7 unless Gregors can eventually find 2 and a bit seconds to catch up to him. How many penalties is Sky's on, by the way? 12.
12.
He must have served. But always, speaking of Skies, he does make a lovely little dive down the inside.
Well, and Alligator's got a penalty as well. I mean, thankfully for Alligator, it's only 3 seconds. But that keeps Moley slightly interested for the race win if there's a late safety car.
True. I mean, he could just be playing for that in a way, because his competition at that point, providing you don't lose the second half a lap, would be Gregor's for the win at the minute.
Joe's now got 9 seconds.
I mean, like we've said it before the race, penalties are going to be huge. Saw it last night.
Oh, Punisher's made another mistake. Punisher seems to be really, really unstable when the tyres wear a decent amount. Was like that in the first stint, and was like that in the
he
second.
touches that grass a lot on that right-hand side throughout that entire section. If you're watching now, you can see the specks on the grass. Oh my word, Rico's going to have an easy pass into P4. He keeps touching the grass, that is the problem.
The don't touch grass when you're racing F1. That's what he basically just said.
Pretty much Super is coming from a set of softs, because I just see he's got another set of penalties, but he's about a minute and a half behind. I mean,
and a lap down,
Lofty's got, yeah, I was going to say that as well. Lofty's got back into DRS and has pulled away massively from Joe. Also, he has that wing damage. So I thought that beforehand, Joe is going to start to lose even more as those tyres start to wear in. But the problem is, Rico or Punisher have not been able to get any closer to him. But it's just a case of the top two have pulled away. And with 8 laps to go, we're getting towards the closing stages of this race.
Oh, Punisher's in the wall. Manages
no.
to save his entire car. But again, having another moment, Punisher.
You can see it now,
really
I don't know if
hates
it's the tyres.
Really hates his old car.
He's really slippery on that rear end. I don't know if I don't know how long you've been watching
it looks like he's kind of got. It's like he's got. His car just doesn't have the balance. Like he's kind of got almost like a TT setup on, but
it could just be a
really pointy over
That's
one
what
lap.
I think it is.
It's either a massive wing gap or a really soft rear suspension
there.
that's making the car so slidey.
You can see there, it wants to pivot every time it's going around the corner. It's almost like it's like that feeling when you have rear wing damage, for example, or if you drive the F2 cars normally at times. Every time you're unbraking and then get off the brake pedal, the car wants to pivot. And that's not what you want, because you're then going to be sliding, you're going to get more temps, you're going to get more wear, and you're going to be slower as a result.
Indeed, you are. Yeah, I think that could be down to suspension. If you have a really soft rear suspension, then what happens is naturally your front wants to be tight and grip up, but your rear doesn't. So that means that your rear gets really soft and floaty, and that's really good over one lap because you can use that. Because you can use that suspension to your advantage, you can get the car turned into corners a lot. But then when you have a bit more fuel, or when you have tyre wear, it's an absolute nightmare. It's the yellow flag in sector 2.
Red Bull Stars Orphan.
Stars Orphan also with
presuming?
27 seconds of penalties.
No damage, it might just be a little half spin or whatever that's caused him
Oh,
to go
Lofty's
about
got
20 miles an hour.
Alligator. Lofty's past Alligator.
That's been brewing for a few laps now. As much as they pulled away from Joe, they've not pulled away from each other, but Lofty, he's got to get a move on at some point. He's got to go about half a second a lap quicker at a minimum just to have a chance, or pray that Ali picks up another penalty. I believe Ali hasn't had a penalty for a while, or even the corner.
I think with Lofty now, what he has done now is Lofty has put Alligator under pressure. Because Alligator knows...
Pit lane.
Yep. Because Alligator knows that one more penalty, and suddenly this is a bit more of a fight for the race win.
I'd say it's the other way around. I'd say Alligator's actually going to be fine sitting behind, because you haven't got to push, because there's a car right behind you. The only thing you might be a bit wary of if you're going too slow is Joe's gaining a fair bit of time now. Obviously those penalties will come back to bite him, but you can see a car in front of you. You know what your target is in terms of that race win. It's going to be just staying within 3 seconds a lot.
He's definitely going to be. He's definitely going to be a bit nervous. You don't need to make moves. He's definitely going to be a bit nervous though, because he knows that a mistake. By the way. Yeah, Rico absolutely flying in the second step.
He could be a late race demon.
Oh, there is the second penalty. There is the second penalty, and suddenly this is a battle for the race lead. This is a battle for the proper race lead. It's just 1/10 of a second now. And Lofty suddenly can smell a race victory, but he has a bit of a moment, and that could bail Alligator out. Because Alligator was comfortable. 6 less seconds of penalties than Lofty, but now's got the same. And Lofty's mistake is very important there, I think. But Alligator, he knows that if he makes mistakes, if Lofty does get a bit more pace on and closes up to him, because he knows that Lofty has the pace to pass him, suddenly
Lofty's
Alligator is
before.
Alligator is under threat for his race win. This has got to be. It's one of those races where you think, how has Alligator allowed this to happen? How's he allowed himself to just clumsily pick up these couple of penalties? Because Alligator was so comfortable, but now it's a bit more difficult.
I'm trying to see if Hicklin's got damage out in P4, because the game had decided to give a warning between him and Joe. Obviously, Joe with that wing damage as it is. I don't know if anything's more from that. Oh my goodness. Look like another chunk of the V-carb came off them, but...
Joe's down to 5th now as well, with that wing
he's
damage,
really
struggling.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if there's a little more between Hicklin and Joe given the game, you know, if it's saying, oh, there's enough contact for a warning. And look, that was the train for the final podium position. It looks like it's going to be Lofty and Alligator for P1 and 2. The very close battle here between Rico and Hicklin for 3 and 4 in that final podium place.
Yep. Rico and Hicklin. Have a look at the penalties. Have a look at the penalties.
6 and 6, so it is fair game as of now.
6.
I'll let you know if any of them do pick up a warning. So I need to look for 12 and 10. 10, which is Hicklin. He did pick up a warning a couple of laps ago.
I think we just got to enjoy the battle for now, to be honest. I think we got to.
Oh yeah, but you know, as we saw,
Hicklin had a huge moment. He had a huge moment, and I think both of these drivers, they know how important a podium is for them. I don't think Rico's had a podium yet. As we'll get up the penalty. I will just keep the penalties up to the end of the race because we know what tyres they're on. Golden Egg Fryer asked for them, so you can just see them. And yeah, these are straight battles for the race win. I think we're now past the stage where there can be a safety car as well.
Tyres are going. So, yeah, we are, because it will need to come in at 33, so we're definitely long on for a safety car now. These tyres are starting to burn, but you mentioned don't worry about penalties. We saw with Ali and Lofty, split second penalty for Ali, and you know the race is back on for Lofty. Anything can happen, especially if there are being warnings picked up, but no penalties accumulating because you're getting that one step closer. And with Canada, you can pick up a warning pretty much every corner if you make that one little mistake. I thought there was another one there, but no. But now it's who's going to play the smarts. 3 laps to go.
I think here,
you've got to play smarts now.
Lofty doesn't have any pressure. Lofty can just throw caution to the wind and push every single corner. If Lofty picks up another 3 seconds, Lofty still has that advantage over Rico, because Rico's 5 seconds behind him. And fighting with Hicklin.
Into third.
Yeah, Hicklin is into third, and this would be a clean podium at the moment for Hicklin.
Thing is,
as Rico doesn't really have an answer at the moment. Doesn't have much battery.
When are you going to want to go for this final move?
Oh,
my
huge
goodness,
mistake!
Hicklin.
Huge mistake for Hicklin. And that's allowed Rico straight back through.
Oh my god,
Rico's on the inside.
They're playing smarts. They're playing smarts. They don't want to be behind on this final penultimate lap into the DRS.
I don't understand that, because Hicklin had like a 4 or 5 second 10th gap. I don't know.
I mean, Joe's got the penalties, which is the problem. I don't think he's got the pace because of that damage. Have a go. They are trying to play smarts for each other. This is a bit of an interesting game, but then at the same time, you've still got another lap after this. So could you be messing around too early? That's got to be a track limit warning. It is for Rico. Now then.
Yeah, Rico here though.
Have one warning each.
Rico needs now to put a car between himself and Joe, just in case he picks up that 9 seconds of penalties. But this is for the podium now. Hicklin tucks the inside line. Rico got so much more straight line speed. Hicklin barely has any ERS left, and Rico, clean as you like, is back up into that podium position as we enter the final lap.
But now you're going to want to recharge those batteries. Didn't mean to cut you off, but you're going to want to recharge those batteries as best you can. Make sure you give it everything out of that final hairpin, because that is going to be The last chance, the run into turn 1 isn't enough, barring mistakes. So it's all going to come down to the hairpin.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. As for the race lead, it does look like, barring another penalty, Alligator pretty much has this one. So we're going to stay on the battle for P3 now. Rico. Is Rico going to get a penalty? Is Rico going to get penalty? Is Rico going to get this podium? Is Rico going to get this podium? Or is Hicklin going to steal it at the death? The gap is now 0.4 of a second, 0.3 of a second, as they're going to enter the hairpin. Who's going to get this? Rico goes deep.
Contact.
Hicklin slightly taps him, and I think that could be that. Hicklin did not expect Rico to be going that slowly through the hairpin. I think he's not going to be close enough. Does not have enough battery, but then nor does Rico really. But we're going to cut back to the race leader, and it is going to be a race victory for Alligator 86. Withstood all the pressure and has come home in P1. Lofty in P2. Rico is going to hold on for P3 just at the line by 1/10 of a second. Joe does get P5 with Punisher in 6th, but I think that Moley is going to be within Punisher's penalty window.
2.5 turns.
Indeed,
Yep,
Moley does get P6, Punisher P7, Gregor's P8,
there'll
and Skies.
be no changes on position on penalties.
Yeah, Skies gets P9 after being absolutely nowhere. And then Colden, Maxwell, and
Super.
Super.
That's at least how I prefer.
Super, I don't know, Dave, because no idea.
Super. I just choose the easiest bloody thing.
Yeah,
Nice little kind of
he's gonna
corner
come
cut
out in
into
P12.
kind of set the tone rate. I mean, that really kicked off throughout, if you look at the race lead, that kicked off, for the first 10, 15 laps. After we had that at the safety car, we fought for about a corner. We were going to have it back on again, but no. Lofty having that big snap out of turn 2. And that, like we mentioned with the tap from Gregors onto Bad or potentially in his race, was that the moment that took away a potential win from Lofty? But credit to Alligator, did what they needed to do. You could argue got bailed out a little bit with Lofty's snap, but at the end of the day, you've got to put yourself in a position where you can benefit from that sort of thing. That's what you need to do in league racing. Put yourself in the best position possible to do what you can.
Indeed. So it is Alligator, Lofty, and Rico, your podium. Given that 2 of these drivers are not on Xbox, I'm not going to bother with the interviews this weekend. Just gonna call it there. And enjoy the rest of my Saturday. Thank you all for watching, and well done to Alligator, the Bulgarian driver, for a fantastic victory, it must be said.